wait staff's money. Welcome to Real Tips HR. I'm your host, Andrew Lieb, and with me we have our employment law expert, Mr. Mordy Yankovich. Mordy, epidemic going on in New York State right now. Restaurateurs are keeping the wait staff's tips. Is that true? Is that a problem?
Yes, it's a big problem, and it does happen all over New York, and I've actually represented both plaintiffs and employers in these types of lawsuits, and it could be very damaging to an employer.
So here's the point I don't get, though. Most waitstaff I know doesn't declare their tips, right? So most waitstaff are just trying to keep this as cash money. So how are they supposed to prove that they weren't given the tips if they never recorded the tips in the first place?
Well, the onus becomes on the employer to prove that they actually gave the tips to the waitstaff. They have to keep a ledger, and if they don't have an accurate ledger detailing how much tips came in and how it was distributed, then it's going to be presumed that what the waitstaff says is accurate.
Whoa. So if the waitstaff alleges, they say, listen, I should have got tips of $300 a night, and the restaurateur keeps no records whatsoever, well, you're telling me is that $300 a night's going to stand?
Yes, it would likely stand.
Because there's a presumption there.
Correct.
And so let's say I go $300. How long can I go back?
You can actually go back 6 years according to New York state law. So if a waiter sues for tips, they can sue for 6 years back. Not only that, they can get attorney's fees and they could potentially get double damages.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa. So they get 6 years times 2, and they get their attorney's fees paid for.
Correct.
And so what I want to understand here is what should an employer do?
So an employer needs to have a policy that the waitstaff has to give all the tips to the manager at the end of the night, and then it's divvied up. You might have a tip pool, a mandatory tip pool. I would actually encourage employers to do that, but that would probably be in another episode. And then at the end of the night, they divvy up the tips, and they have to keep an accurate ledger of who got what tips at the end of the night.
So the job of the manager is to divvy up the tips and to create a ledger, and this should be in the policy manual.
Correct.
And if you don't do that, there's a presumption. Why can't they just get insurance and say the hell with us?
Well, Andrew, most EPLI, employment practices liability insurance, doesn't cover wage and hour issues. It's usually only discrimination claims.
So why can't they just bury the little guy? Like a owner of a restaurant, they may have one restaurant, 2 restaurants. We're talking about a waiter. Why does the waiter have strength against the owner? Why can't the owner just be like, you're one guy, what are you going to do?
Because let's say the owner has, well, first of all, damages could be pretty high for just one person.
Okay.
And what if they own other restaurants? Or what if they, in the past 6 years, they've had other waiters? There could potentially be a class action lawsuit.
These are class action lawsuits too.
Yes, most of them are filed as a class action lawsuit because the plaintiff's lawyer wants to make as much money as possible.
So simply, there's no insurance. You got to have a policy manual. You have to have the manager be keeping a ledger. You got to keep records. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business with this class action with double damages and attorney's fees. This is serious.